Growing is doing more with more, but scaling is doing more, but doing it differently.
Welcome to the Legacy Branding Podcast. I'm your host, Laura Beauparlant, here to guide you through the journey of selling your business and building a personal brand that leaves a lasting impact. On the show, we'll explore real-life founder stories, expert insights, and actionable strategies to help you navigate the transition, avoid post-sale crisis, and create your impact-driven legacy brand. Whether you're thinking of selling, building to sell, or already on the other side, this podcast is your go-to resource for making your next evolution your best one yet. Let's dive in. Today on the Legacy Branding Podcast, I'm joined by Brendan McGurgan, scaling expert, podcast host, investor, and the co-author of the Amazon bestseller, Simple Scaling, 10 Proven Principles to 10X Your Business. Brendan is the co-founder of Simple Scaling and the host of the ScaleX Insider podcast, where he interviews top global thinkers and doers on what it really takes to grow with purpose. As the former CEO of CDE Group, Brendan helped scale the business from just 15 people to nearly 700, exporting to over 100 countries and generating more than 500 million pounds in revenue. Now through his ScaleX Accelerator, Brendan supports ambitious leaders of small and medium businesses to break through plateaus, reignite their passion, and scale with clarity, alignment, and intention. He's also a third-degree black belt in Taekwondo, a Wim Hof method instructor, and a firm believer that scaling your business starts with scaling yourself. Brendan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. And what a beautiful introduction. You brought me back there.
Yeah, well, I was deep diving into you on the internet. It's amazing what you can find about people when you do a little digging, right?
We all leave a legacy on the internet.
We sure do. That's a conversation for a whole other, I could go on about that, but that's not why we're here. I have so many questions I want to talk to you about because as I was talking to you about before we started recording, the audience, the people listening are people thinking about selling their business. And now you've helped companies, you help them 10X their businesses. And I think a lot of people thinking about exiting or thinking, okay, I need to scale it. I need to get it to a certain point in order to make it sellable. But what I love about what you do is that you're not just thinking about scaling in revenue. You talk about scaling with purpose. And I'd love to know what that means to you and why it's often missed in this traditional growth at all costs narrative that we hear.
Yeah, it was a deceased environmental activist, Edward Abbey, who said growth for growth's sake is the ideology of a cancer cell. So I've reflected on this quite deeply, and our vision is to inspire, connect, and enable millions of ambitious leaders of small and medium-sized enterprises to scale with purpose. And what I mean by that is ultimately, if you have a wonderful product or service, which I have no doubt all of your listeners do, then I feel that you have an obligation to scale. You have an obligation to widen your reach, to deepen your impact, and to serve as many customers as you possibly can. What I came to realize during decades of being involved in many scale-ups, the most recent, as you called out, we scaled an engineering business, small engineering business across the globe, set up offices across 6 continents. I thought it was just innate in everyone. It was just natural for people who led businesses to take a small business, to become a medium-sized business, to become a large business. But as it turns out, Laura, less than 1% of small and medium-sized enterprises ever achieve scale, so ever achieve the impact that they, I suspect, set out to achieve. Why is scaling with purpose important? Well, if you think of the people that are on your team, depending on how you show up today as a leader, that will have a direct impact on how your team then go home, having spent 8 hours with Laura today, go home to their families, go home, interact with their partner, interact if they have children, interact with their children, maybe interact with the community. When you have leaders who are consciously scaling, and that's scaling themselves in terms of wanting, and without it sounding trite, wanting to become the best possible version of themselves, leading with a huge amount of awareness, leading so that they ultimately leave the people who they are custodians of, who they have the privilege of serving on a daily basis, a little bit better for the interactions that they had today. Well, those people then go home and they interact with their partners with different energy, they interact with their kids with different energy, and you get this incredible ripple effect across community, society, and economies at large. So ultimately, the P&L, the profit and loss account, will simply be an echo of the value that you can bring to as many people as possible. I feel that you should not be restricted from accessing someone else's services simply because of your postcode. And what I found is that typically people, leaders, prevent themselves, which is why psyche is the very first principle of scaling. They prevent themselves, they tell themselves a story that this is too hard, this can't be done, this is, who else really wants my products anyway, I'm already busy, my God, scaling would mean me becoming even busier. And the reality is, growing is doing more with more, but scaling is doing more, but doing it differently. And that's why you mentioned the book at the outset. It's why whenever I discovered the fact that actually, sadly, less than 1% of the small to medium-sized enterprises out there, who ultimately represent 99% of the business community, and more than 70% of people who are work for small to medium-sized businesses, they are the fabric of our societies. Yeah, the big seven get all of the headlines, but ultimately, most people's bread and butter is gained by virtue of working within small to medium-sized business. And we wanted to codify what it was to ultimately scale with purpose, to widen your reach, to deepen your impact, and ultimately serve more people with your wonderful product or service.
You know, I knew I liked you when I first met you, and now I like you even more. Just so much alignment between, I think, the way we operate, the beliefs we hold, the idea of the ripple effect and the impact we can have on the immediate people that we serve, or our families, our teams, and then the impact that has rippling out. It gets me emotional just even thinking about that. That is my mission in life, is to create this ripple effect of amazing things to so many people. It's insurmountable in some ways to even think about the impact that I could potentially have. I love that there are people in the world like you that are helping more people do that.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, look, I feel when we think about legacy isn't what you leave for people. It's ultimately what you leave in people.
Wow, we haven't even gotten to that question yet, but that's I love that description, because you're right. It's not this thing that you leave behind, but that you leave people with that feeling, that experience.
Imagine just leaving your kids. We were chatting beforehand, leaving your kids, forgetting about your team members or your customers, but leaving your kids with a notion, a belief system that they were limitless.
I'm actually reading Jim Quick's book, Limitless, right now. Do you know the book?
I do indeed. Yeah, I love that.
So and I just told my oldest son, I'm like, you need to read this book. This book it's going to be good for you. So many interesting correlations. So I want to talk to you because I feel like a lot of people, I know I was reading, it says a lot of people come to you, they're stuck, they're disillusioned, maybe they've fallen out of love with their business, they're ready for a change. I feel like those are the same people that I serve, but they don't know what they need. And I would love for you to share what you see are the signs that maybe a founder has outgrown their business or their identity, and what you see from your perspective.
Yeah, it's a great question. We see typically 4 archetypes, 4 personas. So the first one is the comfort zone warrior, the person who has had a certain level of success and they now want to wrap a wall around this and just keep things the way they are. If you're not growing, you're declining. You cannot stop a flowing river. It becomes stagnant. So it becomes a very dangerous place to stay in that comfort zone. The point about scaling is ultimately, you talked about the identity, is you creating a vision that you frame as a vision that you're in service of. that it's not you, it's the organizational's vision. You have to think of the organization as a separate persona, a separate identity, that you've just been really fortunate and privileged to have a really significant part in the birthing and development and nourishment of this wonderful entity, this wonderful organization. When you adopt that mindset, then rather than your identity becoming almost undistinguishable from the organization, you can then really stand back and think, well, what are my skills? What am I really good at that I continue to serve this organization with? And what am I not so good at that I can bring other people in to support the organization in the context of the vision? So we have the comfort zone warrior. We have the dead man walking, which is the person who has started the business. They've wanted to do something wonderful in the world. They've wanted to leave their existing employment, felt that actually entrepreneurial life was for them. They're going to have all of the wonderful freedoms that are glorified out there about entrepreneurialism, and they find that actually they're absolutely enslaved into this business. They are entrapped in the bowels of the business and they cannot see a way out. And paradoxically, making the decision to scale, and what we see within our own program, people come to us and really our program is the last throw of the dice for them. They say, if this doesn't work for me, then I'm closing this business up. And they find through the process, actually they fall back in love with the business again, which is wonderful. It's just wonderful to watch that. So we've got the dead man walking. We've got the graduate. You talked about kind of people not knowing, don't know what they don't know. And the graduate is the new BMD, typically someone who has founded and led their startup and they're ready now. They've got the product market fit nailed, likely doing £1 million or $1 million in revenue. They're creating value and they think what has got them to here will get them to there. So there's a level of hubris, a little bit of arrogance around, well, I've got this licked, but they don't know what they don't know. So that's the graduate. And finally, we have the shadow leader. Many businesses, especially in this side of the world, are family-owned businesses. And they're led by second-generation leaders. And the second-generation leaders are really still operating in the shadow of the founder. I see it all of the time where I walk into businesses and you have founders there, typically men, who have handed the business over to their sons, and it's typically sons. These men, the founders of the business, are in their 70s, in their 80s. And whilst they have delegated the title of managing director or CEO to their sons, actually the son is in this really challenging place of having the title, having all of the toys and trappings that have been gained as a result of their daddy founding this business. And now they feel a sense of obligation to the business to really not mess it up. So they're caught in no man's land. They don't really have authority to make decisions because people are still, even if they're articulating or saying something within the business, people are still glancing towards the founder. Is this really what we're going to do? So whilst the founder is just wondering about the business, saying, oh no, I'm just here. I'm just doing my thing over there. For as long as they're there, people will continue to follow what they're saying, to take the temperature of their body language in relation to the trajectory of this business. Often what the second generation leader does not want to do is actually scale the business for fear of losing it all. So again, they become stuck. So those are the 4 archetypes. We can kind of dive into any one of those, but right at the center of all of this is the very first principle, psyche. It's around the mindset of the leader. It's you becoming aware as a leader of what you're really strong at. What is your unique ability? When are you operating at your best, in your zone of genius, as Gay Hendricks would talk about? When are you operating in your zone of genius? And where are you not so strong? That then triggers the importance of actually bringing others in who can complement your skill set. Is being aware of kind of your strengths, your weaknesses. What are some of the limiting beliefs that you hold? We see it time and time again. One of the things that we hear consistently is, I can't get the people. I would scale this business, but I can't get the people. And kind of when you explore that and examine that, poke at that a little bit further, and I always invite people to answer the question, well, just give me a couple of minutes and inspire me with the vision that you have for this organization. What does this organization look like in 5 years' time? And can I get this blank stare? People will start to think, well, I think we did 2 million last year in 3 years at 10% growth. We might be able to do 3 or 4, 5 million maybe in 5 years' time. There's nothing inspiring about that. What I've always said to the leaders in our program, if you're not inspired by the vision that you've set, if you've set a vision, then don't expect others to be inspired. And great people, and you want great people in your organization, great people want the opportunity to grow themselves within the confines of an expansive vision that this leader has set, and support them in actually executing that. If you haven't shared that vision, if you haven't articulated that vision, if you can't inspire others with that vision, then ultimately you will affirm the limiting belief that I can't get the people. But of course, they don't want to share a vision because that's putting themselves out there. That's putting themselves up for ridicule. Who do they think they are? That's a classic saying in this part of the world. Who does he think he is? God, he's lost the run of himself is another wonderful saying in this part of the world. You'll build a fire so big you'll burn yourself. So you might harbor this dream in your head, but you've never shared it with anyone. And you're expecting people to realize and execute on the dream that you have in your head. But actually, it just seeds frustration because the people around you are just going through the motions of what you've told them to do. They're not actively acting in their zone of genius because they've no idea where it is you're trying to take this business in the first instance.
Hey founders, quick shameless plug for the sponsor of this podcast and my company, Lab Creative, where we help ambitious founders untangle their personal brand from their business so they can position the company to sell and build a personal brand for their next evolution. If that sounds like you, head to labcreative.ca to check out our work and to book a call with me. Or if you want to just dip your toe in first, grab a copy of the Founders Brand Playbook. It's our free step-by-step guide to building a brand that attracts premium buyers and creates opportunities for you post-sale. You can download it at labcreative.ca/playbook. I think there could also be some fear, like, well, if I tell people this is what I want and then it doesn't happen, then I'm going to be seen as a failure.
Fear of judgment, fear of failure. Fear of judgment is a big one. What others think.
Yeah.
Ultimately, there is so much power. I think Cameron Hurl's. Cameron's vivid vision is a wonderful concept, sharing with others what it is you're trying to realize. And then that stimulates a conversation. Immediately when you share your dream, your goals, your vision with other people, they start thinking about how they can support you in getting that. We've had cases where we take people through the process of articulating and determining their moonshot kind of 10 years out and then crafting their vivid vision into a document that's aligned to the 10 principles of scaling. One leader of an organization who has actually just completed his 6th acquisition, whenever he came into our program, they had never contemplated acquisitions. They hadn't the skill set as they believed, they hadn't the competency, hadn't thought about it. They were continuing to try and grow the business organically. They left their vivid vision at the reception table in the organization. At the end of graduating from the program, they had a wonderful document which it was sitting in reception. A gentleman came in one day asking to speak with Martin, the CEO. He was busy in another meeting. He apologized, said, look, we'll get you coffee, settle yourself there in reception, and there's something you might want to read. He picked up the Vivid Vision booklet, read it, discovered that actually the company wanted to acquire companies in these particular verticals over the course of the next 3 years. He knew somebody who had not yet disclosed publicly that was retiring from a business in one of those verticals. Shared this with Martin, made the introductions, and months later they went on to acquire the business. So that was the real power, the tangible power of sharing your vision. But very few are bold and courageous enough to do that for exactly what you said, Laura, which is that fear of judgment or fear of failure.
Yeah, it's amazing how much power that fear has. Even we think we've grown up, we've gotten past the sort of the high school fear of standing out. And yet here we are as these bold, visionary entrepreneurs and leaders, and yet still fearful of sharing this big vision for what will people think? Will they think I'm crazy? What if they watch me fall flat on my face? The what ifs, but there's also the other side of the what ifs. What if you succeed? What if you sharing it with people leads you to exactly what you want? What if?
I love that. And we goad people into thinking that way. So everybody thinks immediately whenever an idea is presented, we think of the things that could go wrong. What if? And then you can list all of the things that could potentially go wrong. We encourage people to actually draw breath and reframe. But what if it went right? What would that look like? Or a wonderful question to pose to people is, what would you do if you couldn't fail? What would great look like in 3 years, 5 years, and 10 years if you couldn't fail?
Yeah, it's amazing how much feeling and our brain and the thoughts that come in have power over us and the decisions that we make or don't make.
It's everything. It's the causal factor of all of the results that we have in our lives. So as people are listening to this, whatever you have in your life now is a mirror reflection of the thoughts that you think. And this is so powerful in the context of psyche, to understand that your thoughts and your ability to consciously think, your imagination, is the one mental faculty that distinguishes us from all other mammals. The birds don't sit about thinking, will we migrate this year? Will we not? What do you think? It was a bit cold last year. I don't think we'll do that this year. No, let's just stay put. They don't do it. And they innately do what nature has determined they do. We have the power to empower ourselves with our thinking or disempower ourselves with our thinking. What we encourage leaders to do is actually reflect on the thoughts that they think and think of those thoughts as the mental raw material to ultimately realize what they want to achieve in life. So if you take your thoughts, ultimately will trigger a feeling, an emotional reaction. That will then determine an action that you take, which will ultimately determine the results that you get. For example, last night I received an invitation to tender for a program to support Irish entrepreneurs. It's supported by an Irish organisation, support Irish entrepreneurs who have high growth potential in becoming unicorn companies. In this document is listed McKinsey and Accenture and Deloitte, and we're there. I'm thinking really positively. The moment I read this, my thoughts now are, wow, we're on this list. Now I'm feeling excited. So my emotion is one of excitement. My action is immediately to notify the team. They're getting excited. And the result is feedback from the team to say, this is incredible. Right, what's the next step? So this creates a thought. Look, the next thought is, okay, what have we got to do next? So I contact the person who is leading on the tender and request a list of the context that they have in the business school that they're encouraging us to partner with, so again, I'm thinking positively, I'm feeling excited, I'm feeling constructive. I send the email and the result is I get a response back. And I'm constantly creating this loop triggered by an initial thought, a feeling that I have, an action that I take, and a result that I get. In these thought loops constantly, and if there's anything that people could take from this conversation is understanding what does great look like for their lives, how they exist within their business, what great looks like for their business, what their team looks like, what great looks like for their team, what great looks like in the context of serving their customers, what great looks like in the context of the product. Take time out to think about that. And reverse engineer from that result to understand, well, what actions am I taking on a daily basis to see that result? And what feelings do I need to feel in order to take those actions to get those results? What thoughts do I need to think to have those feelings that are going to lead to those actions to get to those results? This is why time out, people, talk about the power of journaling, but journal with deliberate intention. Journal and reflect on your day. Reflect on when you were thinking positively in an empowered state, because ultimately from a scaling perspective, it's more important that you consistently operate in an empowered state as opposed to a disempowered state. And unfortunately, this mind of ours did not come with an operating manual. We've got to figure this stuff out.
Yeah. And I think it is such an important message, this idea of our mindset and the way we think. It's not just about the product we have and all of the nuances and the numbers and the this and the, like, it's not all of those logistics and moving parts. It really starts with the vision and sharing it. But your mindset around exactly what you said, it is such an important part. And I feel like we're in this really exciting time now where people are talking about it. Nobody was talking about mindset in any way, shape, or form, let alone business 10, 20, 30 years ago. Nobody talked about it. And now we are, and we're realizing the power of it. And simultaneously, we're in this time where we've actually, a lot of our brain power and has been taken away and masked by, we're constantly inundated with information from outside sources. And it makes it that much harder to listen to yourself, to your own intuition. That is a practice that I'm really deeply trying to step more into, is really getting more in touch with my own intuition, not what everybody else is saying out there in the world, but like, what do I think? What do I really know and believe, as opposed to what is all this external noise trying to tell me that I'm not enough, that I'm this, that I should want that, and I should want this, and forget the shoulds. What is my internal intuition, which I know is very strong, but it has been dampened for years because of that information overload that we experience all the time.
There's a number of things that come up for me whenever you say that, Laura. You mentioned before we came on air that you were practicing some breath work this morning. This is the importance of breath work, where you can actually start to get into your subconscious mind to discern what is serving you in terms of the beliefs that you hold and what may not be serving you, and ultimately to listen to what it is that you truly want. Otherwise, if you do not have that clarity, if you do not have that vision, you become a puppet to somebody else's vision. And you having clarity of your own vision not only informs what you should do on a daily basis, what work you should prioritize, what conversations you should be involved in, who should be in your network. It informs all of that, and importantly, informs what you shouldn't be doing. Too many of us are busy, but actually being busy doesn't matter if what you're being busy for doesn't matter. And only you can discern what matters or what doesn't matter in the context of what you want. So, but very, very few. Again, I've interviewed quite a number of people on this. Dr. Oleg Konovalov, who wrote the book called The Vision Code, did some extensive research and said that it's 0.1% of business leaders can actually articulate what it is that they want for their business.
Oh, wow. 0.1%.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a very small percentage.
And herein lies why so very few companies ever achieve scale, and why you do the work that you do in the context of actually helping people with the emotional challenge of exiting their business. And what I would say in that regard, we're all going to exit our businesses. By virtue of exiting this planet, we are going to exit our businesses. So
I'm literally writing a blog post about the 3 ways you can exit your business, and death is one of them.
There we go. So please share that blog post, because ultimately it's prudent and it's a responsibility incumbent on you to actually plan for your exit. And back to the thoughts, feelings, actions, results. Start with the results and then reverse engineer. What does great look like in the context of a textbook exemplar? You can start to visualize walking into your boardroom on the day that you're handing over the keys to this incredible board, this incredible room of diverse leaders who are championing and cheerleading the vision that you have had a part to play in. How wonderful would that be? That you're being embraced by these people who are high-fiving you, kind of literally and metaphorically, for having the courage to found this business, for having the courage to scale this business, and ultimately having the courage to hand this business across leaving, as the All Blacks would say, leaving the jersey better than you found it, than you being able to drive off knowing that actually the world is a little bit better for the fact that this company exists. And you're being succeeded by a wonderful group of people who are living your values expressed in the company that you founded. If when you start to kind of visualize what that might look like for you, then you can reverse engineer. But to ignore it is ultimately going to trip you up, because at some point you're going to have to face the question.
Yeah. Which way am I going to choose to exit? Or will that choice be made for me? So, oh my gosh, there's so many things. So I'm going to share something with you. I'm going to share it publicly because it's still new, but like you said, if you don't let people know what you're thinking and what your vision is, nobody knows. Nobody can support you. So I have just created the first scalable piece of my business. So I know I'm like, I've never, like you were talking earlier about, you can't work that much more, nor do I want to. So I've never had something scalable. And I just launched BrandCamp AI about 2 weeks ago, which is I turned my methodology into an AI tool. It is a fraction of the cost of working with me. People have called it a game changer. It is an absolutely scalable entity that I'm going to turn into a multi-million-dollar business. And I'm looking for somebody to partner with me to blow this up so that we can help empower more small businesses to build brands that have an impact, that can support them and make them money and support their clients. And as you said, create that ripple effect. I'm so passionate about what I have created. And now I'm looking for somebody or people who can yes, let's take this, let's blow it up, and let's go and change entrepreneurs' lives with this tool. And that is something that I am building and creating, and actually can see has absolute scale that doesn't require me.
Oh, well done.
Not to the same degree.
Well done, you. That is brilliant. And I can see even the change in your body language, the change in your tonation. For those listening and not watching, you can hear the passion in your voice. You can see the animation in your body whenever you're articulating and sharing this vision. How inspiring is that, to waking up every day and to lean into something that's bold, that you don't need to figure out all the bits, but it's actually attracting people to that vision who will bring the how for the execution. But it takes the boldness to actually communicate it and put it out there. So I commend you.
I don't want to do the how. I created it. It's awesome. My husband and I were having this conversation this morning over breakfast. I'm like, I've built it. I want to be the visionary. I want to be the one who can okay, let's now level this up. I've got new visions for this. Do I want to create funnels and get the sales in? No, but I want to be the creative mind behind it in this methodology. So anyway, now it's out there. I'm telling people what I'm looking for. So who knows where that leads? We touched on legacy earlier and what it means, but I would love to know, what is the legacy that you want to leave in people?
Yeah, it's a wonderful question. And let me start, first of all, with something we touched upon before we started recording, which is parenting. From a personal perspective, I want to leave my kids a little bit better as a result of having had me as a father, so that ultimately they can leave the people that they interact with throughout their journey of life a little bit better as a result. If that's the only thing that I ever do, then I will go to this next life, whatever that holds, a very, very happy man. In terms of what we want to do professionally, I shared with you earlier, our vision is to inspire, connect, and enable millions of ambitious leaders of small and medium-sized enterprises to scale with purpose. But ultimately, it's whether that's 1,000 that we only ever touch, that 1,000, if they have 10 people in their team, or 10,000, if those 10 people have a partner each, now what have we got, 100,000? I feel that some days when you're doing the work that we do, especially even the podcasting, you're wondering, is anyone listening to this?
Hello, is anyone listening?
Is anyone listening to this?
Yeah.
But it only takes one or two people to really begin making the ripples And don't underestimate that, and don't underestimate the work that you're doing, Laura. So
thank you. I love that. We don't have to directly impact 1 million people. But like you said, if you can do an amazing job with 100 or 1,000 and the ripple effect out, ultimately you will have that huge impact. And you may not know it, but that's okay. I don't need to know about every single life I impact. But if I put out that energy, that the people that I really can have an impact on, whether it's 20 people or 200 people, if I can be focused on the energy I'm putting into them and the impact I can have on them, then they can go out and it's what they then do with that.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
Here,
amazing.
Here.
I feel like we could talk for hours. So let's wrap this up. How can people find you? How can they connect with you? Get a copy of the book, learn about the accelerator, all the things.
Thank you. I will share our link tree so that you can share that or put that in the show notes, Laura. So best connect with me on LinkedIn, Brendan McGurgan on LinkedIn. Our website is simplescaling.com. The book is Simple Scaling, 10 Proven Principles to 10x Your Business. It's available on Amazon, and you will get me on all the podcast platforms. ScaleX Insider is our podcast. So on the website, you'll find details about our 12-month ScaleX Accelerator program and also our digital platform for smaller entities, our ScaleX Elevate platform. So thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your amazing insights and the beautiful gift of the work that you do and the mindset that you bring to business.
Oh, that's so kind. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on for a great conversation. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning into the Legacy Branding Podcast. I hope today's episode has inspired and empowered you on your journey to building a brand that truly matters. If you enjoyed today's show, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other founders who you think would benefit from listening. And if you're ready to take the next step in building your legacy brand, visit our website, labcreative.ca, to learn more and book a call. Don't forget to join us next time for more conversations that will help you navigate your transition and create your legacy. Until then, I'm Laura Beauparlant.